Over my shoulder there is Mr. Galen from the Well-Fed Neighbor, and we will talk gardening and food and the politics of food and all that good stuff. If you have questions, get into the chat room or email me, vdj at crossing-the-world.com, vdj at crossing-the-world.com. Our Davis Cellular text line, 417 844-5412, 417-844-5412, if you want to text us. Galen, you could hear through the door just before you came in this whole bunny gate. This is insane. I mean, the government is wanting to fine people $3.9 million, or initially $90,000, for selling a bunch of bunnies. I mean, this is a world truly gone mad.
It is, and I appreciate bringing that up because one of our Feed Missouri First / Well-Fed Neighbor Alliance is involved in both of them. A young man named Sam Garner down in Branson organized the rally at the FDA today at 3 down in Ozark. I was busy working to organize people between here and Rolla, so I couldn't be there. But here's the question to your audience, and I'd like to. And I feel honored to pose it to your audience because they have the perspective. Does anyone truly believe that we are a self-governing people in the state of Missouri? I haven't met anyone that answers that to affirmatively, so I'm throwing that out for your audience. If we're not self-governing, what are we?
We are a police state. I mean, that's the reality. We are now a police state.
When our reference points are larger than ourselves in faith, when we have an authority larger than us, then we have a place we can go that can appeal to our higher nature and our better angels. When human beings are the largest point of reference, the state, there is nowhere to go when the pathologically violent and greedy game the system and the lower nature of man predominates. When Missouri was founded, we were self-governing, we made all we need, we fed ourselves and many others besides, and we had a hopeful, free, beautiful future ahead of us. Does anyone in your listening audience feel that their children and grandchildren have a free, prosperous, inclusive, and a sustainable future ahead of them? Anyone? I'd like to debate that question because this has everything to do about food freedom. I'm calling for a right of return. Right now, it just came to me. You know, we're all distracted and preoccupied with Palestine and that whole mess that's over there. How about a right to return to self-governance, growing our own food, making things of value, and becoming a self-governing people? This is what the discussion has to come down to, and it needs to get there very quick. It's not just kicking down the screen doors of dairy farmers. It's not just persecuting some rabbit farmer. Control the food, control the people. We are so far gone that we continually are distracted by all these little straws in the tornadic winds and stand there rooted to the ground instead of not only heading for the exits, but heading to a future of our choice.
What is to be gained by fining this individual? I mean, I don't know if he's a nice guy or a jerk, but all he did was sell some bunnies, and they want to stab him for $90,000. What happens if he doesn't have that money? What are they going to do?
Whatever they want. What they're doing this
for
now to make it,
some lousy rabbits?
They're making an example of him. They're making an example of him, of anyone who in fact has divided loyalties between the one who rules the universe and commerce, the god of government.
Well, it sounds like you're a lot closer to this story than I am.
Oh, yes.
I mean, has any politician shown the guts to stand up on this? Or are they all running?
You mean the castrati?
Yeah. I mean, they're all running.
Well, they are here to serve the god of commerce. They are not here to serve the god of liberty or self-governance or individual freedom or the pursuit of our higher ideals. I don't look to any politician for any kind of courage, wisdom, or anything. They are bought souls. They have bought into a system of, as you said, slavery or tyranny, and we are all so diminished, we have no grit or perspective to understand our true state of being right now. We are at end game. You know, some say food fascism, food freedom, this, that, everything. We need to step back and look at the big picture of who we are being. When we are better people, we will get better leaders. The ultimate authority either resides with we the people, with inalienable rights given our Creator, or it is government. If it is government, we are subsumed in this victim that's being victimized by the state can only be victimized because of the depth of our buy-in to the God of commerce. You pull out any dollar bill, taking the Lord's name in vain, it's right on there. Taking a graven image, that's what the thing is. Taking about thou shalt not kill, the thing is drenched in blood. This government has been now instituted by banks to protect them from the wrath of the people they are robbing blind. And once all of the wealth of this once incredibly wealthy, powerful, free, and independent state has been shucked out of us like a locust husk clinging to a branch, we are dispensable. So this is the true state of where we're at, and these things are happening all around us, and people cower in their houses just like they do in an approaching tornado, and there is not one politician or person in politics that can speak this truth. You simply are not given the forum, the truth. The media is totally controlled. I asked Billy Long at one of the debates, you know, when they were housing all of these people, asking the questions. They were running for Congress. I said, Billy, they read the question. That was something, just to get this question read. If elected, will you pledge to restore food and energy sovereignty to the people of Missouri? He said, well, yes, and then he went on to give this long anecdote about farmers, but he did say yes. Not one reporter, nobody picked that up. That was probably the most profoundly pointed question asked in the entire campaign.
But nobody understood it. That's the problem, Galen. The
Right.
reporter would have went right over the reporter's head,
Yes.
clueless.
Right.
And God bless him, but I don't know that Billy would have caught it either.
He had caught enough that he talked about the dairy farmers and people going under.
So where's Billy Long when this poor bunny farmer, rancher, is getting persecuted?
Because it was not for lack of trying. I'm trying to demonstrate what balls in a backbone look like.
Yeah.
Here's what we need. A third grade child, fourth grader, some sweet little thing at the next, every politician, every town hall meeting, stand up, she should say in that sweet little piping voice, Mister, what if we have to feed ourselves again? What is your plan? And if there is not clarity coming straight out of that man's, she needs to scream at the top of her voice, you are a phony. Turn around and leave the room, and then 15 or 20 people all stand up and leave and go out with her. That will get their attention. Nothing less than theater now, art as revolution. And I'm a Gandhian, so I believe in a peaceful, prosperous, sustainable, inclusive future that we have choices about, not the sheiks of Saudi Arabia, not the bankers of London, not the goons that are running the government in D.C., clueless, immoral, well-believing, well-intentioned, whatever. Until and unless...
I don't believe they are, but I don't think they are
Well,
well-meaning or
I'm going to
well-intentioned.
give the assumption that many of these new people that came in there fervently believe in the Republic and fervently believe in the Constitution.
They can't. They would be screaming bloody murder over what Barack Obama is doing to the Constitution.
They're all screaming at each other because there's not, and this is the funny part, you know, Obama comes in and he's the adult in the room. You know, the media had a field day with that. Let me tell you what an adult is of any species, and was at least 60% of this state when I was born. An adult is someone that can independently feed himself or herself in the world and on its terms at the time of reproductive age. And that was 60% of Missouri when I was born, and it is less than 1% now, and nobody even knows what I'm talking about or how far we're gone. If they stop feeding us, what then? Fill in the blank for who they are. If you think Missouri farmers are feeding us, I'll tell you what the truth is. 2.5% to 3% of all the food we consume even originated in Missouri, much less processed. Well, our farmers ship out $3 billion a year of GMO corn, sorghum, wheat, and rice. For ADM, Monsanto, Smithfield Farms, Walmart, you name it, the corporations that took over our land-grant colleges stole them from the people in the 80s under the great Ronald Reagan, who had no clue what he was doing. He was told to, just suggested that he appoint the first black to the Supreme Court, who happened to be the head lawyer of Monsanto, Clarence Thomas. And his first ruling was to patent life forms for Monsanto, and they went straight to the Capitol and patented, stole the seeds of we the people, our crop and our future. We can back up through every president all the way back to World War II. The last honest one, the last one probably freely elected, was Dwight Eisenhower, who said when he was out of office, when he was leaving office, not just one sentence, the entire speech, beware the military-industrial complex. And here's where you're going to wake up and find yourself in the very near future if you don't understand what I'm saying and read between the lines. We the people have been asleep. When Jesus was tempted, it was with worlds, with glory, with dominion, with all kinds of things. We have sold out for glass beads, mirrors, and trinkets. Every single one of us has ran off to fulfill our own private little dream by state-sponsored education fueled with the real intent, which is to steal the land out from under our feet, the control of our food supply, and turn us into human serfs, and when that no longer serves, dispensable.
Well, they're finding out now
of the world.
That
the
hedge funds are now buying up the majority of larger plots of arable land in America. They're all now owned by these huge banks. We are becoming serfs
with our money,
and it's gonna come to the place where. I don't know how we get onto the land. I guess we have to pay the banks $1 bazillion and get to keep a few crusts to feed our family and do it all again next year.
We have to start where we are. $1.5 billion worth of processing for our own food supply has disappeared under all of our politicians' watch because we are asleep and they're asleep. They're my neighbor. They're your neighbor. I'm not castigating any flesh or any human being here. I'm talking about evil in high places. And it's time that we looked it square in the eye and understand what we must do to survive. It's not jump through all the hoops and hurdles designed by these big corporations to squeeze us out of the food commodity market. It's to raise rabbits and give them to your neighbor. It's to raise goats and give them and show each other how to regain control of our food supply. Get out of commerce. Get out of the god of commerce and mammon, which is symbolized by these little blood-drenched pieces of paper in our pockets. We are not just sheep. We're sheep on our way to the slaughter. We can't feed ourselves. We can't self-govern. And when you get a room full of juveniles and no one that can actually knows what it is, what is it we fell? Why did we fall? To acquire the knowledge of the gods? No, that was the lie. We fell because we were thieves. We stole. And everything else is our cover-up story. Everything. And the second thing was, well, the penalty is you're going to go down there and now you're going to learn what it is to pull from the thorns and the earth your daily bread. And not only were we thieves, but because we're lazy, we're trying to figure out how somebody can do that on $1 a day and die dispensably out of our sight by the billions while we drive around in this little late bloom of oil. You know, every gallon of gasoline contains the energy of 24,000 hours of human labor. And so we've gone from 1.5 billion people 100 years ago to 7 billion now, and we are out of control. We will not control our numbers. We will not control our lower nature. We will not control speaking broadly now, this is a historical sweep. I'm reminded of my audience, and I'm reminded looking at you. I'm not castigating anyone listening. I am trying to find one person out there that is awake, and they're calling me now. They're calling me from different parts of the state, and they've finally looked out and said, my God, it's true. We, the people, not only can't grow our own food, we make nothing. My kids can't sew on a button. My kid can't figure it out. His nose is stuck into this parallel universe in which, like Obama, we have these huge grand plans and concepts, and the man couldn't find his way out of the backyard with a compass. The disconnect between who we are being and the deluded ego that the evil one takes us because of what? Pride. And here we are. If you would feed your child bread instead of a stone, you're going to have to start looking to everyone. I think of 1.1 million people in the food shed around Springfield. The need for them to have this conversation, to self-organize as all of our ancestors did in the face of calamity and adversity. We have gone through some hard times just to be here. But post-World War II, my generation was born after that. We represent a broken link since biblical times of feeding ourselves, tending the crops, doing everything that we did to create a stable society between the Creator and His creation in a righteous, upright way. No one does that now. No one conceives of what it's going to be to go back and learn these. I say no one again. My apologies. I'm looking at a man that's plowing up his front yard. So here's a leader, guys. If you want to make a statement, get somebody to plow up a strip, even if it's the size of a coffee table, out in your front yard and throw some popcorn out there. Do something. Grow a rabbit hutch. We started
don't
with
sell $500
Don't sell them. There's a wonderful lady out in Theodosia called me the other day, says, well, we've organized a grocery store and a restaurant, well-fed neighbor. She just called me up to announce, didn't ask. They're just doing it. She's great, getting her goat herd up to 100. Out in these hilly Ozarks,
Sure.
It's the perfect animal. They're like deer without the good press.
Exactly, yeah.
And they reproduce. They can keep them in a barn all winter. They will eat cedar branches. They will survive without GMO corn, without big pharma, without big government, without these inspectors who are our neighbors. And if anyone out there is listening to me, you can have a private conversation with me. We, the people, need to know what you need to pay your bills. You've got a repository of knowledge, and we need to hire you away from the corporate system that has stolen you and made you, force-fed you to repeat the big lie over and over and over again until maybe you believe it, which is due to geography and topography, the Ozarks are only suited for cattle and fescue. Oh yeah, explain these grain towers. Explain the orchards, explain the prosperous, multi-diverse farm agrarian economy that 100 years ago, this very summer, made us the wealthiest place on earth. Stop telling the lies. Look at yourself in the mirror. You're in the church with me and with these others. Tell us what you need, how much to get by, and start serving the people with your knowledge and restore a diverse, abundant. We need to restore the production field. We can have mobile slaughterhouses. We can have our own state inspectors. We don't go below the letter of the science or the law, the feds, but our inspectors who are there to help us prosper and feed each other safely, not play gotcha and drive us into the oblivion, as the federales are doing. It's simple. We have the laws in the books. We had state inspectors. Joe Maxwell got this in the 90s, and they were the first things we defunded.
Look.
Anyway, you got me going. I brought some plants to show you.
Yeah, we'll get there the next
half. I
half.
get passionate over this.
No, we'll finish up this half hour on this. You know I love you. You know that you are a dear friend. You know I have the highest respect for you. I say this. Let me finish. You're nuts. And let me explain.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's going to do anything. I mean, I agree with every single word you've said, buddy. You know that. But I'm going to take it one step further, and that is nobody's going to do anything. Nobody, again, generalizing.
In general, that's right.
Coming at it from a Christian standpoint, if you look at Acts 2, if you look at how the first church, the first century church lived, how people came together and shared, which in essence is what you are saying, good luck finding more than a handful of those folks that would be willing to do that, because everybody has bought into the Gordon Gekko greed dream, you know?
Pretty much.
And that is what America is all about now. They bought into the Gordon Gekko, greed is good, greed is what makes America great, and greed is what's destroyed America.
Wide is the gate and broad is the path that lead to destruction.
I mean, even if you want to fight game, like AT&T is a good example of greed. They've oversold the circuit that we're doing this show on, and because of that, I can't run video, I can't put slides up, I can't even talk too loud.
Right.
Otherwise, I'll lose the circuit.
Right.
Okay? Because they've oversold it.
Right.
But they don't care. I talked to them today about it. They don't care. It's all about greed.
Right.
And how am I going to take on AT&T?
You're not.
Unless I find a lawyer who's crazy enough and willing enough to do a class action suit against AT&T for overselling their circuits. Now, how are you going to prove it? I've had technicians admit off the record that, yeah, we have. But how are you going to prove that in a court of law where they've oversold and are not delivering on what I'm supposed to be paying for? Now, I don't want to get locked up on AT&T. That's just today's example of what I was fighting with. But this goes on every day with something new. Plus, like I said, trying to get a group of people that will live for each other instead of themselves. And camping was a nutcase, okay? The Bible's really clear. No man knows the time or hour. That guy was a nut. Right. But Jesus said, you will know the season. In Thessalonians, Paul says, when it says Jesus will come like a thief in the night, he says, but you are children of the light. You should not be caught unawares by these things.
Absolutely.
We know we're in the season. Yes. Even then, and even now, people won't come together. Now, present audience excluded, but overall, trying to get people to work together, even, Galen, I mean, this is the kicker. For our own freaking survival.
Right.
Our own survival.
Right.
People won't come together. Help each other. Grow some corn, non-genetically modified. Grow some beets. Grow some radish. Grow something. They won't, even to save themselves. And there are all kinds of nursery stories and such about this. But individuals that even to save themselves.
That's right.
They won't.
That's right.
I mean, it's like Animal Farm.
Agreed.
And
so why do I do this 7 days a week, 24/7?
You and I both. I mean, we're preaching similar messages.
To the remnant. To the remnant.
And boy,
every
I read
day
a great article about that the other day.
We got farms, we got people
it
moving.
Is the remnant.
And it's the poor, it's the dispossessed, and the when Jesus said give to the poor, he said the Ebionim. The Ebionim means the poor. The poor followed Jesus. And when he said to the rich young man, give what you've got to the poor and come and follow me, that's who was following him, was the poor. And what is that, Leonard Cohen? Jesus walked upon the water until he was certain that only drowning men could see him. It's that letting go of mammon and materialism and the culture of convenience and getting ahead and comfort and certainty and all of the things that look at the government promises that it is trying to do. That's not the point of our life. So yes, everything you're saying, and every day I'm going to farms and people that saying I could put so many people in my barn. I got a call from a woman from Kansas City. She's in her 60s. A lot of women in their 60s that grew up on a farm, canned, and her eyes were opened. My golly, the people coming from California and everywhere back into these hills, I don't see even a fraction of them. But those that need help or ask for direction or what they can do, I'm a nexus. I put them together. I walk on farmland all the time and say, you've got a great dream here, my friend, but this 15 acres is not going to support a community. We've got land in Lawrence County that's got 3 or 4 farmhouses on small plots next to a raw milk dairy farmer, homeschool. It's almost everyone that's coming to me is homeschool, has homeschool kids, because they have their eyes are not closed to what
they're not going to let the state destroy their
purpose
children.
of state education is, which was, and here's the lack of grid. I'll give that quote again by Kaiser Wilhelm, and I can take it off into another direction tonight, one I think that's appropriate. I cannot conquer Europe with farm boys. They are independent. They can feed themselves. They do not need the state.
Yep.
Therefore, take these children away from their parents at an early enough age. They can be indoctrinated with the goals of the fatherland. The goals of the fatherland, again, remember, put humans and the ambitions of humans at the hierarchy of value. Worse, at that time, farm boys and farm girls, by the time they were 12 or 13, could birth a cow, ride a horse, shoot a deer, skin it, grow the crops, dry them, tan them, smoke them, and live independently on God's earth as instructed by the Bible. The mother's role, the woman's role, was to ensure that primary education and discipline. So what the military-industrial state has done is, first of all, destroy womanhood. It destroyed the equal status of women as the keepers of the seed and the food for their neighbors and for every subsequent generation. Once the women were out of the picture, the men were easy. Germany in 1870 was the most military industrialized country on earth, head and shoulders. It was also one of the most populated places on earth. There was no room. You have a farmer, he's got 8 or 10 kids, just like my Amish brethren here. The eldest child gets that farm. What are you going to do with all of these other people but warehouse them in the cities? So you have people that no longer have these skills. They move into the cities. Remember, in 1900, this entire city was a garden. There weren't lawns and trees. We've got the pictures on our website. It was pathways in between all the homes here, and it was like the Garden of Eden. They brought those skills, but it died out. The next generation, I'm going to college. And now Obama wants everybody to go to college for 6 years. And now you're 26 and you're still a juvenile in home and you're covered by insurance. We are being kept, the word is neoteny, a perpetual state of arrested development, moving backwards more and more toward a childlike dependency. I'm asking people to ask the simple, powerful questions. What happens if they stop feeding us? This goes beyond our school, our rationality, and all of our politics and all of this stuff that's been heaped upon a foundation of sand.
See, the end game, though, and you've intimated this, the end game is to reduce the population back down to that 1.5 billion, give or take. Yeah. You say that, though, to people, and they don't want to believe it. And 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. 18 months ago, I don't know that I would have believed it. I do believe it now. I have no doubt, because the decisions they're making relative to the world we live in are not rational decisions to preserve and maintain. No. They're decisions obviously designed to protect the elite, read the bankers, and to thin the population. I mean, when it all hits, and I don't think we've got much more than 18 months. I think it happens the end of 2012, somewhere around the inauguration 2013 is when you are going to see it hit big time as far as financial collapse. I mean, you talked about Israel a minute ago. We're on the verge of either Psalm 83 or Ezekiel 38. I'm not sure which, but you've got the UN pushing for a Palestinian state. You've got Israel saying, we're not going to give up the Golan Heights, because if we give up the Golan Heights, we're toast. They'll lob bombs at us all day long. We can't do that. You're going to have the UN push for that. You're going to have war break out in the Middle East. Right. When that does, what's going to happen to the price of oil? We're worried about $126. Forget about 126. Try $500.
$500 a barrel.
And try $10 a gallon.
CIA. Oh, unavailable.
And then what happens as far as commerce in America? There won't be any.
No.
And try and find a government person. They'll be hiding in the hills quite literally while all hell breaks loose. And once, the strong have survived, we'll come back and we'll reorganize you in the way that we want you. And Galen, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm trying to prepare as many people as possible. Right. I mean, if we can't get off of this plot of land, we're going to make enough in the sense of food to live off of this plot of land, right. And figure, we can even bring in probably 2 or 3 families.
Right.
And, if I plow up the whole backyard and the whole front yard, we'll feed them all.
So each family needs to do a food deficit calculation. The government puts out statistics for how much corn, beans, tomatoes, rice each adult.
Yep.
You multiply that by the number of people.
Missouri Extension's got those numbers.
And add that up for your family in terms of pounds of food and all these things. And then that's one side of the ledger. Here on the other is what you produce with your own hands. Because that has always been true wealth. How many people you can feed and for how long. The fiction of money and the corruption of money is the fiction of government. The Bible has a system of jubilee, the Bible has a system, and the number one thing is usury. It's condemned by death.
Hello.
And each time you see, well, it's just money, it's a medium of exchange, another big lie. Stop repeating the lies and start thinking for yourselves. Yes, it's a medium of exchange. How come two entities take a little piece of morditas, as they say in Mexico, the bite, out of every transaction? The banks and the governments instituted to protect them from their thievery, usury. I won't go into that's a valuable topic for a whole, the history of usury and how we lost that fight and how we are destroyed because of it. And how each of us, because we are blinded by the system. You're mentioning the collapse. $3 to $4 trillion of speculative money fly around the world every day, which is in excess of 100 times greater than all human output and endeavor, goods and services. We are so far gone into Alice in Wonderland here that getting a grid for this, that's why I bring it back to home. And I'm talking to ex-submarine commanders and military men of rank that have general...
Military guys get it.
Totally. And I am a Gandhian, as I've said on the air before, Vietnam era, conscientious objector. I had surrendered my will, not to any man that was then going to tell me to kill for Moloch, for this system, for bankers, or the oil that they believed was off the coast of Vietnam at that time, Gulf of Tonkin, the slaughter of Cambodians, and all of that by the secret war of Kissinger and Nixon. You talk about constitutions, fellows. In any other, now they're going to hang Mubarak, and president of Egypt for killing what, 600 or 800 people, ordering to fire on them. Our presidents have murdered millions, not in our name, but for the masters they serve.
Look what's going on in Libya right now, for goodness sake. So
this is what military men understand honor. I'm not afraid of the battlefield. I want to stand between the armies. The prayer of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument. He was a soldier, an instrument of thy peace. Where are you the instrument of peace if not the battlefield? And if you're the instrument of forgiveness, where but the battlefield of unadulterated hatred and anger, coming from the the quotes I like about Jesus and the examples of his life that make the most sense to me are the one man in the 20th century that overthrew 350 years of tyranny by the Bank and the Queen of England. His name was Mohandas Gandhi, and he did it without firing a shot. The ambassador of India, sitting there flanked by the British High General Staff in his little hut, said, "Surely, Mr. Gandhi, you don't just expect us to leave." And he said, "That's exactly what I do expect. You are simply going to leave." And what we do by regaining control of our own food supply system, sharing the food as they did in Acts, until we get back self-governance, until we get back our own undebased currency, until we get back a righteous attitude toward the land rather than extraction and exploitation at all costs to satisfy my immediate needs, until we get back to something that looks like an ordained, biblical, inspired relationship with the Creator's creation, we're behaving as if it's ours because, remember, we're thieves. That's why we fell. We stole. And we have first got to get a grip on who we are being. First individually, then with our family, then in your church. And if there is not a pastor in there that gets this, leave that church and start tithing to your next door neighbor. We have 100 families on average, one realtor said more, being thrown out on the streets into this rain every week, Christians throwing Christians out into the street. Isn't that lovely? In the name of banking and this government, get a grip, folks. We have got, name one minister in this town that's saying, "Come on, congregation, let's stop sending money to feed China and Ghana and sending our little missionaries down to Guatemala for a year or two so now they're holy and they're all spiritual and they can come back here and get a McMansion." Why aren't we at least helping them move? Why aren't we some hot dogs or coffee for them and taking down their skills on a little index card and their phone number or wherever their contact is and what they do in life and said, "Look, buddy, if we get back a blue jeans factory, or if we get back a TV factory, or if we get back food processing, or pickle factory, or bread companies, and all of the things that we're going to restore because we can feed ourselves, and that's the basis of a true economy, we haven't forgot you. Welcome back to the old Missouri. We are a self-governing people." It's that simple. I'm preaching on this station because there's not one minister. This is a challenge, guys. You bring me your minister. I will sit down as my neighbor and have a heart-to-heart talk with that. The problem is they are hired and fired by the congregation, and if you get one step out of what is the expected homily, the little old lady in the second row is going to get rid of him and organize a coup just like she did for the last guy who was there. These kids, they go to seminary school, they come straight out of state education or whatever. They don't know, they couldn't find their way out of a garden or feed themselves. They don't have the biblical basis of the covenant with the land, which comes first. You break the covenant with the land and your destruction is imminent. And here we are 3 generations deep. 3 generations deep. And this has taken me a lifetime to finally get total, absolute clarity on this. So let's organize the food shed necessary to feed the 1.1 million, 250,000 of them which live in Greene County around here and commute up and down these roads to earn their daily bread, which is actually being produced by somebody in China or the Pacific Rim or Mexico, and get back to honesty, self-honesty first. Pick up that Bible and it'll speak to you in a whole new way. And Jeremiah sitting on that hill watching that twining vine, God says, because of 4 or 5 righteous people in that city, I am not going to destroy it. If we could find 4 or 5 Christians in the city of Springfield, maybe, this time we will make it. And that's a challenge. I'm not saying this to be harsh to anyone. I'm speaking as if you're my neighbors and that there is some semblance of an adult mind out there.
See, but the problem is, Galen, I bet you there isn't but maybe one person in Springfield watching tonight. Not one. The audience is looking at who's out there. We've got people in West Virginia. We've got people in California. We've got people in Florida. We've got people in Wyoming. But you see, the Christians in Springfield and the Bible Belt, they don't want to have anything to do with what I'm teaching. They don't want to have. I mean, and we need to stop to take a break. But I mean, the Crystal Cathedral, the biggest church in town, their basement's filled with $30,000 worth of things that go pop.
Yeah.
$30,000 they flushed on fireworks.
Yeah.
How many mortgage payments could you have made? How many homes could you have saved with $30,000? How many people's lives could you have kept from being destroyed? But instead, pop, pop, pop. And
well, feed Florida first. Feed West Virginia first. Feed Ohio first. Feed California first. Look into it, folks. None of you can feed yourselves. You're processing. California, Texas, Florida are the three states that produce a lot of food. But your processing has been very cleverly taken out of your state and put as far away as possible, so you lost control of your ability to feed yourselves independently. This strategy came from 1930s Germany. And it came straight into the heart of this country with Operation Paperclip and a whole bunch of other very nasty things that happened before many of you were born. And this history is not taught in your schools. You are taught the history of the state. Look back to the golden age of your own state, the golden age of agriculture in Ohio, the golden age of agriculture in California, Florida. You were a self-governing people at those times. You were prosperous, and the disparity between the richest and poorest was least. In 1880, 1890, there were more care facilities and hospital beds run by we the people than there are now. And this was the truth across America because we took care of our own, we took care of each other, and we were a humbler people. Doesn't mean we didn't cast a shadow. Doesn't mean we didn't have immense evils that we had inherited and were dealing with. Slavery, women's suffrage, all things that we believe in now. There's nothing wrong with awakening, with an awakening. We are continuously awakening here. But the minute that the order, our Commonwealth control of the land, the seeds, and the food was intentionally disrupted by state education as the goal, it was over. And the way to get that back is to forget mixing your dreams and your faith with your money. You cannot serve two masters.
Amen.
Serve your neighbor. The ones that want to learn, give bunnies to those children. Down in Ozarks, they should be grazing bunnies and giving it to every child in that school. Let the FDA and the federal food Nazis come in and kick down every door. If you can feed yourselves, and like we are in the Ozarks, armed to the teeth, they don't believe that they won't go to the next level. There is another level, but at least you force the hand. The iron fist of tyranny comes out from all of the pretense of caring.
No more games anymore.
No more games. Stop the games.
All right. We're going to